Alright, welcome back to the next video in my introduction series for this video set. In this one, I'm going to be going over the first sort of season of the game that we've been playing, and this is going to cover probably about the first 3 months or so. I apologize if I'm not as articulate in this video, but I'm going back over my storyteller's notes, and these are the first time I've seen them in about 6 months, so I'm going to be going over this for the first time in a long time as I explain it to you, so yeah. Also, this is not my first Coke and rum anymore, so if I start to slur my words, well, just be looking forward, I guess, to the last video, because it'll be really bad by then. So, the Chronicle opened with all of the characters separate from one another. After being embraced, Spezdan was left in the tutelage of one of his sire's other children, who was the abbot of a monastery which he was sent to. Unfortunately, this sibling, I guess, viewed him as sort of a rival for their sire's affection and did not care much for him. So, he spent the first 20 minutes or so of the Chronicle pretty much just trying to make his, Spezdan's life as much of a living hell as possible. And eventually, he sent Spezdan on an errand to go deliver a message from their sire to Radu, the Prince of Bistritz, who apparently their sire was possibly allied with. On the way, he met Joshua, which was Miles's first character, the bard I talked about previously. He was just really wandering aimlessly as a bard, and so I really didn't know quite how to get him involved in the Chronicle, so I went for the old DM's trick of just having everyone meet on the road. So the two of them just started traveling together because, I don't know, that's what player characters do in role-playing games for some reason. When they arrived, however, they found that Bistritz was already in a state of uproar because the Tremere they've been pressing the attack on the Tzimisce, who control Bistritz. Probably uploaded it in the comments or the video description of the last part. I'll put it in this one too, like a wiki link to the Vampire the Masquerade wiki, so if you don't understand a lot of the just very general stuff, like the fact that the Tzimisce and the Tremere don't like each other, I guess you could read up on that. It would really take forever for me to explain that, so I'm just going to kind of assume some basic familiarity. So if you need to look up stuff in the wiki to understand what's going on, please feel free to do so. So, the Tremere have been, attacking various Tzimisce holdings, so Bistritz is under attack at the moment, so Radu had ordered all of the Knights of the city to come and help him defend their holdings, so, or at least all of the people in his city that he had control over. That included Gabriel and his sire. It also included Mary's character Dragomir, and as soon as Spezdan and Joshua turned up, they got drafted as well. So everyone was all stuck together, and they had to launch an attack against the Tremere, who were attempting to block the river, which went into Bistritz. The player characters pretty much got sent on sort of a suicide mission, Special Forces style, and they actually succeeded, which to the surprise of everyone. So, because of that, they got chosen for another special mission. And of course, I mean that in the classic video game / role-playing sense of special mission, another attempt to kill them by the people in charge. So they were supposed to go and go to a abandoned castle and try and refortify it, and somehow they survived that too. So really the rest of the season is just a series of sessions where the Tzimisce send them on increasingly more ludicrous tasks to try and stop the Tremere. They did have several encounters. Really what I wanted to do with this session is essentially just give the characters time to get to know each other for... You can only kind of force characters together for so long before it kind of stops making sense. So I just tried to come up with a series of scenarios where they would logically all be drafted together and sent on a mission, and then theoretically they would become friends just through the shared hardship, which is why they stick together beyond that. Most of the stories I took were actually from Transylvania by Night, and I'm going to go into a small review of that when I'm finished here. In terms of important missions that kind of stand out, there aren't too many, really. They accumulated some minor favors from various people, and really it eventually ended up with the Tremere advance into the Tzimisce territory pretty much being halted. The whole war between the Tremere and the Tzimisce is not really dealt with that much. I mean, it's mentioned, but, like, the actual time frame of it is never gone into, which, you know, gave me some freedom, so I like that. So, the Tremere were launching basically a massive assault all over Transylvania. So, this season was really them just kind of getting sent to various locations just to try and stop what was going on. The other good thing about this was it gave me a chance to kind of introduce the geography of the region to the players, kind of give them more familiar with the surroundings. The most important thing, really, that happened is right at the end, there was a summit of all the Tzimisce voivodes to really deal with the Tremere, because the main thing that was holding the Tzimisce back was that they've just never been organized. So they all get together to try and decide this. The main reason this is important is that Yorick, the High Priest of the Cathedral of Flesh, who is one of the most powerful Tzimisce Methuselah in the world, decided that he wanted the Salubri to join with the Tzimisce in their war against the Tremere. And Joshua got nominated as sort of the poster boy for this new alliance. So this is the first really major thing where our canon has kind of diverged from regular World of Darkness canon. I made it clear to the players early on that they would be free to take things in a different direction. They went in either the real world or the canon World of Darkness. This immediately got David and Mary to thinking as to how they could prevent the Soviet Union from collapsing, but we'll get to that later. Joshua went along with this, mostly because the entire party was scared shitless of Yorick from the first moment they met him. And so they were able to thwart an attack by werewolves on the summit that was organized by their enemies. And Joshua began sort of promoting the new Salubri Tzimisce alliance and trying to bring the warrior caste of Salubri into the war against the Tremere. And really what this did in-universe was it basically just consolidated the war into a stalemate. That's really how this season ends, is they've stopped the Tremere advance, they brought the Salubri into the war on the Tzimisce side, and so really now no one can kind of make progress one way or the other. And the whole war just kind of cooled off for at least a little while. So, with that done, they got sent on one last mission to build a new fortress in an important strategic pass in Transylvania. The mission itself wasn't really that important. It's pretty much the kind of stuff they've been doing the whole time. The main thing is that this is actually the first story from the Transylvania Chronicles storyline, which is kind of the overarching story that I'm telling, although there's a lot more added into it. So, while being sent on this mission, they came across some ancient tablets describing an ancient prophecy of the rise of the demon Kupla, and the fact that Gehenna is coming and there's the antediluvians are going to come and destroy everything. So this is the first time really that I had sort of brought up the idea of the antediluvians, which is, I had already made it clear to the players outside of character that that was where this was going, but this was the first time the characters were actually introduced to it. After that, they were able to finish that fortress, and pretty much they all just retired to Bistritz to try and enjoy a few years of peace and quiet. And that's where this season ended. So, basically now I'd just like to talk about Transylvania Chronicles, or not Transylvania Chronicles, rather Transylvania by Night in general. This is essentially a prelude to the Transylvania Chronicles. If you're going to run the Transylvania Chronicles themselves, you should probably definitely get Transylvania by Night. In terms of quality, I think it's a really good book. Of the Dark Ages setting material, it is probably the best, in my opinion. It deals with a whole region rather than one city, but that really makes sense for the Dark Ages, because really each city is only going to have maybe 2 or 3 vampires in it. The major exception probably being Constantinople, which still has like 1 million people even in the Dark Ages. It introduces some interesting characters, some kind of meta plot important characters, and I guess I'm in the minority of people who I actually kind of like the meta plot, so I like it when it's developed a little bit. Yeah, I would suggest getting it. It's got some stuff on Anatoly, who's an important Malkavian character, especially later on. It's got some other stuff. I'm just kind of leaping through it right now. It's got a lot of different stories, which are... It's not fully fledged adventures, it's just sort of story ideas, and is set all over Transylvania. So it really gives you a lot of options with what you want to do. You know, you can kind of develop them into their own thing, and that's basically what I did. I just kind of devised a series of missions, basically, with these basic story ideas as framework. It's also got a lot of important information. If you're going to feature the Tzimisce or the Tremere heavily in your chronicle, and it's set in the Dark Ages, this is also a really good book to pick up. If you're going to pick up one setting book for Dark Ages, I would probably suggest it's this. I would give it a strong recommendation over even the other books. And actually, I thought the Dark Ages By Night books were alright for the most part. They usually each had something to set them apart, which I find is usually the biggest problem with like a city source book like this, is if you're going to set your chronicle in that city, fine, you know, it works, but unless there's something to really set it apart, you know, I don't see any reason to pick it up specifically, especially because you could even design your own, like, vampires and stuff and history for the city yourself. So I think it really needs to have something to set it apart, and I feel like this one, especially by focusing on a region instead of a city, really does that. So, I don't think there's that much else I need to talk about. Oh, I suppose I almost forgot. During Season 1, Gabriel, the Bruja Knight, did encounter a French toreador woman named Ariane, who he did fall in love with and attempt to woo. It was unsuccessful, but she is a reoccurring character that his interest in her has never exactly waned, I guess is one way to put it. Yeah, she didn't really play a big role in Season 1, but she kind of becomes more important as time goes on, so I should probably mention her. Other than that, that's really it. This will become a bit more story-focused as I get into the next couple videos, because there's actually overarching plots, which there really wasn't in this first season. So, that's it, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and there will be more coming up, so I'll see you guys then.